And I hope you guys are very frightened right now.
Welcome to week 16 of the Tailgate. I'm Michelle Margaux. That is Ralph Vacchiano. We're going to be joined by CBS Sports Analyst Amy Trask in just a bit, who will tell us her evaluation of Daniel Jones and how the Jets should prioritize their offseason plans. And speaking of the Jets, Ralph, they got their first win of the season. How much do you see this coming back to haunt them?
If Trevor Lawrence is what everybody thinks he is, the John Elway, Andrew Luck type prospect, you miss on him, that's going to sting. You're going to watch him become a great quarterback. It also changes their calculus now. Trevor Lawrence seemed to be the no-brainer choice. Now they're stuck with another choice, and if they're wrong, that could set them back 5 years.
Mekhi Becton criticized so-called fans who root for the team to lose. Where do you stand on fans who root for a team to tank?
Yeah, that was a rookie mistake by the big guy. He'll learn. One thing that I've learned over the years is you do not tell fans what to do. They're in the middle of a horrible season. Trevor Lawrence was the light at the end of the tunnel. I can understand how fans feel that way. I'm not going to say they're not real fans. They're the ones who are sticking by this team year in and year out, putting their hard-earned money in. No matter how they feel, don't tell them they're not real. That's just not fair to them, and it never goes well.
Well, it is the holiday season, so we figured we'd play a little bit of Secret Santa. Ralph, I'm going to throw out a name. You tell me what you'd get that person, okay?
All right, I'm ready. With my big salary from the Tailgate, I'm giving out a lot of good gifts, so go right ahead.
All right, the first person, Adam Gase.
He is getting a gift card to an office supply store because he's got a lot of resumes that he's going to have to print out probably in just a couple of weeks, and it might not be that easy for him to find his next job. He's going to need as much help as he can get. All
right, number 2, Sam Darnold.
Well, I don't know for sure that I can give Sam what he wants, which is to be a Jet for life, but I'm going to give him something I think is better. His choice of a new football helmet, either the Colts, the Steelers, or the 49ers, because honestly, I think he is better off someplace else. He could go to a better organization and have a terrific career.
All right, Joe Judge.
Joe Judge, I actually changed gifts for him after Sunday night. I think now I want to get him a recording of Kenny Rogers singing The Gambler so he learns the lyrics. You've got to know when to hold him, know when to fold him, because he doesn't. He gambled way too much the last 2 weeks, and I know he's young and he's aggressive and all that, but that's not necessarily the best thing for a football coach.
Daniel Jones.
Sadly, I think what he needs most is one of those electric stim machines to work on his body to help him with injuries, because he's now missed 3 games actually, with 3 different injuries in his first 2 seasons, reminding us all that the days of Iron Man Eli Manning are over, and boy, were we spoiled for a lot of years.
What about Bill Belichick?
Whoa, how did I end up here? This is not very Christmassy, but it kind of fits Bill Belichick a little bit better. I have a couple options for him. He needs a quarterback, especially since he lost Tom Brady. I'd also like to give him a picture of Tom Brady holding up the 4 fingers so he'd have something to laugh about in the offseason. But mostly, he needs a new mask and instructions on how to use it, because he just does not get it. Or maybe he doesn't want to get it, but somebody needs to show him how to strap that thing on.
Man, Bill Belichick made out like a bandit this Christmas.
I know, he's getting everything, but he always gets everything he wants. It's crazy.
All right, let's call an audible. And Ralph, now that Jets fans have become the biggest Jaguar fans around, is it a foregone conclusion that the Jags will not win another game?
Well, it's pretty close. I mean, there has been some Gardner Minshew magic in the past, so he certainly can revive that team. And their schedule isn't horrific down the stretch. Now, they do play the Chicago Bears, who been hot of late, but I'm not a big believer in Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles or whoever they want to throw out at quarterback. I do like the way the Indianapolis Colts play defense, but they have Phillip Rivers, who's 49, 50 years old. They have a chance to win one of these last 2 games, maybe more so than the Jets have a chance to beat either the Cleveland Browns or the New England Patriots, although, who knows with Bill Belichick, as we talked about last week, he could tank for them. I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible the Jaguars could surprise.
Let's high step into the friend zone and welcome in CBS Sports Analyst and former Raiders CEO, Amy Trask. Thank you so much for joining us, Amy.
Thank you for inviting me to do so. I'm delighted.
All right, so now that the Jets find themselves on the outside looking in at the number 1 pick, how do you balance sticking with a quarterback like Sam Darnold against drafting a quarterback who is not named Trevor Lawrence?
Look, you've got to make a decision as to whether or not you think Sam is your quarterback for the future, whether or not you think there's a better option, whether or not you're willing to pursue two options at the same time. Arizona did that a few years ago, drafted Josh Rosen, used a very high pick to do so, went ahead then and drafted Kyler Murray. And I would suggest to you that Arizona is very delighted they do so.
When you look, I mean, obviously the Jets have bigger needs or at least more needs than just at quarterback. But when you look at them in this offseason, what would you prioritize? What do you think they need to do to start their rebuilding process from this miserable season?
I think they need to make an assessment as to whether they believe they have the right head coach and the right coaching staff to develop a quarterback, whether they stick with Sam or they draft another quarterback, or they keep Sam and draft another quarterback. Do the Jets believe they have the right coaching team in place to best develop players? And that's a question they'll have to take a long, hard look at as they move forward.
Let's switch over to the Giants for a minute. They have a couple of big issues that they have to work on for next season, and one of them is Daniel Jones. He will be entering his third year, which is big for a quarterback, and the reviews are mixed. It used to be you could give quarterbacks many, many years to develop. Nowadays, people look at Patrick Mahomes and quarterbacks like Justin Herbert and think, okay, we need instant success. So when you look at Daniel Jones, how do you evaluate him, and how quickly should teams come to a decision on quarterbacks like that?
Before they do anything, they've got to let him get fully healthy. Not this week, but the week before when they played Daniel. Going into that game, Joe Judge said, I'm going to have to make sure that he's able to protect himself. I'm going to have to assess his mobility. They went ahead and they played him. He was sacked 6 times. He was hit another 11 times. Joe, over what course of those 17 hits did you not realize he could not protect himself? That all needs to be factored into the analysis. Before you make a good assessment on him, you need to let him get healthy and then make that assessment. If you decide to move on, ask yourself, and do what? Throughout my career, when fans would say to me in the stadium on game day or in the parking lots or wherever I would see fans, Amy, you should cut this quarterback. By the way, I didn't have the ability to cut the quarterback, but Amy, you should cut this quarterback. And do what? Do you have a better answer? Because until you have a better answer, what you doing?
More from Amy in a bit, but first, let's dive into the comment section and hear from our first fan.
Hey, Tailgate. Jimmy from Jimmy Soft Serve here. So it looks like the Jets might not get that draft pick after all. What do the experts say? Do they keep Darnold? Do they draft another quarterback? I know Jets fans were hoping for that Lawrence jersey under the tree this year, but it looks like they might need a Christmas miracle on this one.
Well, the experts are a little torn on this. They like Justin Fields. They think he can be a franchise quarterback, but they are not sure if he will be a great one or a good one, how long he might take to develop. They just know, they think at least he's the second best quarterback in the draft. Darnold may be better. The problem with him are the financials. He is a guy who has one more year left on his rookie contract. Then he's going to get his 5th-year option, which is going to be $23 million. So the idea of starting over that financial clock with a rookie like Justin Fields can be appealing.
Right, Ralph, switching gears here. So watching the Giants play the last 2 weeks obviously has not been great. Is this team moving in the right direction? Are they actually improving moving forward, or are they kind of stuck in neutral?
You can't just look at the wins and losses. I think they're headed in the right direction. If you had a better quarterback, this team would at least be 8-8, 9-7. They'd be the division champions. They'd be a playoff team. But Daniel Jones has regressed. So that, to me, right now is the missing piece.
In 1997, you became the first female CEO in NFL history, which is obviously amazing. Take us back to the moment when it happened. Who was the first person you called and what did you say?
Wow, you know what? What a question, because I've been asked about this subject a lot and no one has ever asked me that question, and it's a really neat question. When I joined the Raiders, it never occurred to me that would be a trajectory I would be on. And when Al shared with me that he was granting that title to me, I was taken aback. So I called the first and the really only person I ever call about things that are meaningful in life, and that was my husband.
What'd you say? I'm the new
CEO. Like, hey, sup? It was a very short conversation, and I should have probably told him get champagne or something like that, but it was a very special moment, not because of the title, but because of what I believe that suggested, or what that suggested to me, Al's confidence level in me was.
What drew you to football in the first place, and what made it a career that you wanted to pursue?
Love of the game. I fell in love with the game of football when I was in junior high, and the Raiders were in Oakland when I was at college in Berkeley, and I fell in love with everything about the Raiders. The fact that the owner of the team would give second and third and fourth and maybe more chances to people others wouldn't give second and third chances to, that he would hire people who other organizations had labeled behavior problems or whatever the equivalent wording is, because when I was in kindergarten, I was labeled a behavior problem. And that, I can see Ralph laughing. Ralph knows.
That shocks me.
It's stunning, right, Ralph?
Yeah.
That label stuck with me through 12th grade when I went off to college, and a lot of people would argue it's still an appropriate label. And by the way, public service message, do not label children. Do not label them when they're in kindergarten. Do not label children at all. But I was labeled a behavior problem. So I love that this was a football team where the owner didn't care if you were a behavior problem.
You've said before that you really love your nickname, the Princess of Darkness. What do you expect people to think when they hear that nickname?
Well, I hope you all are terrified of me, and I hope everyone who hears that nickname is always terrified of me. Look, I do love my nickname. I shall cherish it forever. Frankly, I think it's the best nickname ever in the history of nicknames. It was not bestowed upon me as a compliment. Let me make that very clear. Mike Silver, who was then with Sports Illustrated, wrote a feature, and one person shared with him that a number of people throughout the league referred to me behind my back as the Princess of Darkness. And that was absolutely, clearly not intended as a compliment. Well, I kind of liked it. And Raider Nation liked it. They embraced it. I embraced it. And we said, you know what? We own this. Princess of Darkness. And I hope you guys are very frightened right now.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for your insight and for your time. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a big treat. And be afraid.
Let's get into Victory Formation Christmas edition. And Ralph, if there's one Christmas movie that's on that you have to watch, what is it?
Well, who doesn't stop and watch It's a Wonderful Life when it's on? I mean, that is, of course, a classic. But I tell you, an underrated Christmas film that I always end up spending too much time in front of the TV when it's on, Bill Murray's Scrooged. And honestly, he's done so many great movies. That's an underrated one for him, too, but it's fantastic.
I have not seen either.
Oh, my goodness. You ever saw It's a Wonderful Life?
No. Let me live my life.
Holy cow, what is wrong with you? Get in the Christmas spirit. You got to put that on.
There's a lot. My answer to that is The Grinch and Jim Carrey version, not the cartoon version, but that might just be because I'm a millennial. That'll do it for this week's episode of The Tailgate. Thank you again to Amy Trask for joining us. You can find her on CBS Sports Network on That Other Pregame Show, and We Need to Talk. For Ralph Vacchiano, I'm Michelle Margaux. We'll see you next week.